This podcast was brought to you by Anchor, the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. They have tools that allow you to record and edit right from your phone or computer. It allows you to distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can even make money without having a minimal listenership. It's basically everything you need and all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Aqua Tofana. Sorry, I'm being goofy. I'm trying to make sure the sound works in my microphone. And that was the first word that popped up. But hi, welcome to the Awkward Black Nerd Podcast. I'm Daisy Kane, and sorry for saying Aqua Tofana. But that was the first word that popped up. I think it's because I've been watching a lot of Bailey Sarian, and I'm obsessed with her YouTube videos and her makeup tutorials, although my makeup never turns out the way hers does, but she's a professional makeup artist. But yeah, that's why it popped up. But if you guys ever get a chance, you should check out her videos on YouTube, or at least check out her murder mystery makeup videos. She records every Monday where she talks about a true crime story, and she basically gets ready, and it's pretty interesting. You get enthralled with it, and I like her videos because she talks to you just a normal conversation. She's very captivating to me. But yeah, that's why I was saying Aqua Tofana. I think it's my favorite word now. But anyways, I'm rambling. Let me just get on to today's topic. I'm going to be talking about I'm trying to word this correctly. I'm going to be talking about a past relationship that was pretty significant in my life. Even to this day, I feel it's kind of made me the woman I am today as far as relationships go. And it wasn't a good relationship, but it was one of my first serious adult ones, and it taught me a lot to grow up pretty fast, and it kind of molded the foundation of what to look for in a good relationship. And I think in this strange way, it's helped me be a smarter person within my marriage. It's I'm trying to think, because I'm not trying to give this person particular credit, because this person is a huge piece of shit, no offense, but he kind of is. But I feel even when I talk about it to this day, breaking up with this person was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I feel maybe if I discuss this story and just give these lessons that it taught me, maybe it can help somebody else that's been in such a toxic relationship. So I guess to talk about today's episode, this will be, maybe I'll do this also because I think I started thinking about this relationship because also I have a book coming out next month. It's entitled The Way She Was. It's gonna be independently released through Amazon. It's gonna be released November 13th, by the way. And it's just a collection of poems where I talk about past relationships, and I don't give names out, and I don't really. That was weird. I heard a tapping. That's weird. Anyways, I don't necessarily bash anybody, but it was just when I started the project, it was very cathartic, and it just helped me reconcile some things from my past. And I figure, but I started thinking about this one particular relationship, and it was just I reconciled feelings about this person years ago, and just looking back on it, all I can think is, holy shit, I just dodged a huge bullet. So I guess the entire the name of this episode will be Breaking Up Saved My Life. So let's just get into it. So I guess the first thing I will say is I'm not gonna name names in this episode, and I'm gonna try to keep this story as quick as possible. But for privacy issues, the person I will be talking about, let's just call him Missouri, because that's where he was from. He lived in Illinois, Missouri area, but let's just call him Missouri for privacy issues. And basically it was an unwanted breakup on his end, but like I said, it was the best thing that he ever did. And I'll just start off by saying the biggest advice I ever had was dealing with the unwanted breakup is to look very closely at the person that broke up with you, and then carefully look at yourself, and you will see a myriad of ways that that subconsciously you ask for the breakup to happen, as well as ways to just kind of show that you want it better. And like, it took me years to kind of figure that out for myself, but in a way, I think subconsciously, like, I kind of needed this relationship to happen because, like, growing up, I was never the girl that had like a ton of boyfriends in school, and like I was never like that. I was never really popular, and I really didn't I didn't have like a boyfriend until I was like 16. Like, I was a late bloomer, and then like I didn't have like a first like serious boyfriend until like the year after that, like where we were like, you know, I guess like physical, like where I was like active. Yeah, I was like 17-ish, and like that relationship was kind of like a shit show within itself. Maybe I'll talk about that at another time, because that was like another, like, you know, life lesson. But so like I didn't have too many significant like experiences as far as like romance was concerned. And like, so when I guess I met Missouri, he kind of like, the relationship was kind of like significant because when I entered a relationship, I entered with my eyes closed. Like, my heart was on my sleeve and my eyes were closed, but when like things officially ended for good, like my eyes were wide open, and it kind of like, it changed in a way for the better, if that makes sense. And I always think that when we first got together, karma may have had something to do with it too. Like, maybe all the bad things that happened with us. First, I used to think maybe it was karma because I was dating another guy at the time, and like, this poor guy, like, he was a really sweet guy, but like, I think I liked him more as like a friend, and like, even though we hooked up and stuff and we called each other boyfriend and girlfriend, I think he had more feelings for me than I had for him. And I felt like the entire time I was like stringing him along. And even like, so eventually, yada yada yada, he goes out to sea because he was in the Navy. I grew up in like Hampton Roads, so throw a rock, you're just gonna hit a bunch of Navy dudes. So he went out to sea for like 6 months. He went underway, and while he went underway, I was trying to live my best life. I was like still like in my early 20s, so I was living my best life. And like back then, like online stuff wasn't like a big thing at the time, but it started to be big where like you could use Messenger, or you could start using, I don't think MySpace was around then, but I know like other like messenger sites was still around. And that's kind of how I came across Missouri. And we started talking online, and then talking became flirting, and then, you know, we started talking more and more, started talking on the phone, started hanging out a lot more, and then long story short, I started having feelings for him, and it was always that we liked each other. And I think what was different with Missouri than it was with the guy I was dating was because, unlike the guy I was with, me and Missouri kind of had like an instant connection. Like, things kind of felt different, and like he kind of was like he was like one of those guys that always knew what to say. But, you know, looking back on it now, he was just really manipulative. He was one of those, not gonna say narcissists, but he was one of those like charismatic sociopaths. I guess that's the polite way of saying it. But either way, that's how it kind of was. And so eventually, like, we got feelings for each other, and we like admitted that we liked each other, but I knew I had to do the right thing, so I broke up with the current boyfriend. And poor guy, like, I felt bad how it happened, and luckily we ended up still being friends, and like technically to this day we're still friends, although he's still pissed off about the situation, and I don't blame him because it was shitty how it all happened. But, you know, bless his heart for still wanting to be friends with me. And so me and Missouri started dating, and we kind of like jumped into the relationship like head first, like not thinking straight. We were both like around the same age, and I think he was like a year older, but, you know, we were both naive, and we both had like a lot of growing up to do. Like, he was in the Navy too, but like me, like I was in a weird transitional period where like I was still living at home, and like I was taking a break from college because I didn't know if I wanted to like keep my major, because I kind of like enrolled in college just to appease my parents, because I was still living at home at the time. And it was one of those things where like I wanted to save money and then get my own place, then go to college. But my parents were like, as long as you're living under our roof, you're either gonna go to school or military. And I said, okay, I'll go to school. Enrolled in like community college. I was taking like business administration or something. And either way, I wasn't feeling it, so I took a break from college, and I was still working. And like, I still was kind of like sheltered by my parents a little bit. Like, they still gave me like a curfew, and like they were telling me I couldn't go out after a certain time and all this stuff. And like Missouri saw that I was very sheltered, and he kind of like was trying to like be like a father figure, I guess, because like he saw like a young girl who needed like, you know, guidance, and he figured he can guide me. And me being a young girl, you know, naive shit, you know, basically I was in love. So we decided that we were going to move in with each other. But I think like from the get-go it was like a horrible idea. Like we decided that we're in love, we're going to move in with each other. Mind you, this kid didn't even have his own place. He was living with somebody that he worked with in the Navy, like him and his wife, and they had like a house, but they didn't have kids, but they were renting their other rooms out. So he had one of the rooms, and I guess he talked it over with them, and they were like, yeah, she can stay as long as she pays rent and, you know, buys groceries and shit. Which is still, you know, in hindsight, it was a horrible idea. We should have just got our own place, but I'm kind of glad we didn't. And then also, like, you know, just how I moved out was so immature. Like, I didn't even discuss it with my parents because I knew they were going to say no. Like, I decided that, like, because I used to go over to his house all the time, like, every time I would go over, I would just, like, sneak over, like, I would just bring more and more of my stuff over, so eventually all my stuff would be there. And then, you know, I didn't even think of how I was going to tell my parents. And the only way my parents found out I was moving in with this guy is because my dad walks in my room one day, and he sees that my room is empty, and awkward. And that was one of many awkward conversations I had with my parents, and they kind of just washed their hands of it. They were like, you know what, you're 18, legally we can't do anything. And they just wanted me to, like, I guess figure things out for myself, but they made it blatantly clear they didn't like this kid, and he wasn't very likable. So, excuse me. So yeah, and I think I kind of moved in with him despite my parents, because like at the time I felt like they were smothering me, but in hindsight, again, like, I'm kind of glad they were the way they were. I mean, there were times where I wish they kind of would, like, were a little more trusting with me, but I'm kind of glad they were the way they were with me, because I probably would, you know, ended up pregnant or in jail or something fucking dumb if they weren't, like, caring like they were. But I feel like at the time, I think I moved in with Missouri to spite them, as opposed to, you know, thinking things clearly. So anyway, so we moved in together, and like the first year was pretty cool. Like, it was like the honeymoon phase where we were basically pretending to be married, but we really weren't. But it was nice to like come home to someone and like cook dinner and, you know, spend time together. And like, I was working, and plus I decided to go back to college. I was going back for like criminal justice at the time. And he was just finishing up his time in the Navy, and he decided to sign up for college too. And like, we were talking about marriage, but like, we never really like fully like got into it. I mean, eventually we got into it, because I think I remember at one point we picked a wedding date, but I don't think I ever was able to like fully commit, because there were times where I saw he had like a controlling nature, where he was always the type to like make plans for us. Like, he was always kind of in control. And plus, like, I think this is the thing that made me fall in love with him at the time, but now looking back on it, it was like a horrible like personality trait. Like, Missouri was the kind of person where he'd always have ideas, and he was always dreaming, and he was always like, you know, he was always like a thinker and a dreamer, but none of his ideas ever came to fruition. And, you know, me, like, I always try to support him. However, when it came to my dreams and my ideas, like, I always wanted to be a writer. Like, I've always wanted to be a writer ever since I was a kid. But whenever I would like discuss like trying to focus on like maybe publishing a book, or like trying to get involved with like writing groups and stuff, he was never supportive of my dreams or my ideas. He kind of always said that I was being naive and stupid, or I needed to be more realistic. Yeah, he could say the dumbest things like, I want to be a lawyer, but not think about going to law school. I'm like, that's not how that works. And he was like, no, there's a way to go around it. So it's kind of like, in a way, that should have been a red flag number one, that like we never fully supported each other. Like, we were never on the wavelength as far as supporting each other. And plus, like, but I didn't think anything of it, because, you know, all relationships, you know, weren't perfect, and ours definitely wasn't. We had like typical arguments. But like I said, like there was other red flags. Like he had like this really weird controlling nature where, especially with my friends and stuff, like I noticed that like I started becoming more distant from my friends. Like before me and him were in a relationship, I used to be very outgoing, and I used to always be that girl that used to always spend time with her friends, and we used to always go out and stuff. But then I feel like once me and Missouri got together, it was always like I had to be home. And hold on. And like I said, he had like a controlling nature, especially when it came to my friends. Let's see, like he would always say that he doesn't like any of my friends, although his friends weren't that great either. I mean, especially like one of his friends did the worst thing to one of my good best friends, but we're not gonna go into that. And he had like one friend, like one of his other closest friends used to live with us, like, and he was such a huge piece of shit. Like, don't, even to this day, every time I think about that kid, I'm just like, God, hope lightning hits you. And I'm not a hateful person, but hate that person. But he would always say like horrible things about my friends, and he used to always feel uneasy about me going out with my friends and stuff, like I couldn't be trusted. And like I didn't think anything of it at the time. It was just like, well, no guy ever likes his girlfriends like friends. But just looking back on it now, it's just more of, he was just very controlling. And like it really didn't hit me until I really didn't see the red flags until like around my 21st birthday. We decided we were going to go to Vegas for my 21st birthday. Like we decided we were going to save money up, and I don't know who came up with the bright idea, which was the most horrible idea ever. We decided to get a joint checking account. And that's like the worst idea ever, especially for two kids barely in their 20s. And like at that time, like I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't that great with like financially speaking, like I wasn't as financially responsible, but he was a lot worse. And like the worst thing you can do, I feel like, especially if you two aren't married, is to get a joint account. Although even to this day, I feel like it's not a smart idea either way, because even now, like I'm married now, happily married. We've been together for like, it'll be 10 years next year, but we've been together for like almost 13, but and we don't have a joint account. We refuse to, because like even now, like I remember my parents arguing all the time, and it's just like money and is like one of the number one things that couples argue about. And of course that's what me and him argued about, money. And I feel like that was maybe the beginning of the end of our relationship, because I remember like the trip to Vegas was like a complete shit show. Like we argued about money the whole time, and then we always argued about that joint account, and it was just like, it just added fuel to the fire. And then like, long story short, like I think after that, like I started noticing a huge change in myself. Like I was no longer outgoing. I wasn't thinking for myself anymore. I was going out of my way to like, what can I do to make him happy as opposed to making myself happy? I was more focused on a relationship than myself, and that was horrible, especially around that time. I was still in my early 20s, and I was still trying to figure life out for myself, and it was kind of like difficult because I was more focused on the relationship as opposed to myself. And like, I guess eventually, like, things only got worse for us, and eventually I made a decision to move back home begrudgingly. Like I had to put my tail between my legs and move back home. And even then I was still naive to say, you know, we can still make the relationship work. Like we talked every day. I still spent every weekend at his house, and I thought maybe the space would make things better, but it just made things worse, because I noticed there was like huge change in him too. Like I'm going out of my way to make the relationship better, and I just noticed that he started becoming more and more distant. And then finally, like things just came to a head, and I just remember this motherfucker dumped me literally a couple of days before my birthday. Like I knew it was happening, because I remember we were fighting more and more, and then I remember coming over there like I think that Thursday or Friday just to hang out before I had to go to like class or something. And I just remember just looking in his eye, and he just dumped me. And I just remember it was just like this huge slap in the face. And like I've been broken up with before, but just how he did it, it's just, I've never seen somebody just so detached. Like it's just like the way he broke up with me. It's just, I still remember it. Like I remember crying, and I remember skipping class, and I just remember going to this funk. And then what's even worse, I remember like we saw each other like, I guess like a day or two after, because it was like before my birthday. We saw each other a day before my birthday, and I'm thinking we're gonna get back together because he was like begging to see me, and we hooked up, and it was goodbye sex. Who the fuck does that to somebody? Yeah, so it was basically goodbye sex. So yeah, that's even more embarrassing. So like he had a way of being like emotionally manipulative, and he did that even after we broke up, because I went through months where I was like heartbroken, and then I started questioning my self-worth and all this stuff, when in hindsight, hold on a second. Yeah, so naturally, like, I go through the, like, after the whole breakup sex debacle, I went through this whole funk where I was like questioning my self-worth, and like I was trying to figure out, like, what did I do? When in hindsight, it was not just me. Like, we had no business being together. Like, you know, sure, we were in love and stuff, but just like overall, like, just some things aren't meant to be and some things aren't meant to work. But me, like, I spent the longest time like overanalyzing the situation, and which is not healthy, but it's something that I had to learn. And then like we had this history where we would go back and forth, where like we still kept in touch because, you know, I still loved him. And like I saw myself, like, when I did try to like date other people, I was always comparing these guys to him, and in a way, like, let's just say my judgment was like tragically skewed. Like, my judgment was compromised at that point, and I made a lot of, like, you know, not so smart choices, but that's what your 20s are for, to, you know, make dumb choices. And eventually, like, me and him, we kind of got back together, where we kept in touch, where like he would have this thing where like when he had a feeling I was moving on with my life, he would refer to me as his girlfriend. But like around other people, even like his family, he could not call me his girlfriend. Like, he would just treat me like, oh, Ashley's still hanging around. But me being dumb, like, I just didn't think anything of it, because I'm just like, what are we? I was just more happy that he was still in my life, which he should have just let me go. I should have just let him let me go the first time, because he was continually playing mind games, which again, not healthy. And like eventually, like, I think when I finally called him out on it, like, he got out of the Navy, and he was like in the reserves, but he got called to go over to the Middle East. So me still having feelings for him, I was terrified, because I didn't know what that meant for us. And I was just like, so what does that mean for us? And he was just like, we can make it work, wait for me. And like, it got to the point where I even drove to Fort Bragg for this motherfucker to visit him when he actually came over, like, came back, like, to the States. Like, so I spent, like, let's just say, I want to say like 6 months pining over this dude, you know, trying to live my life. But, you know, I had hopes that we were going to stay together. And like, long story short, this is what was the final end. Like, the final end was, he writes me a fucking letter basically saying, oh, I met somebody else, and, you know, I knew a long time ago a future wasn't going to work for us, and you need to move on with your life. And like, I think what was more like, of course I was naturally heartbroken, but at that moment I kind of snapped out of it and was just like, fuck this dude. And it didn't help that the girl he dumped me for had the same name as me. So I was just like, wow, this dude is a sociopath, and like, fuck this guy. So like, I think it was then where I was just like, fuck it, I'm done. And like, eventually, like, I just had to take a step back, and I just realized, I can, like, what am I doing? Like, I wasted years on this guy. He obviously never valued who I was as a person, and what am I doing? And like, it was then where I just like, I think I took like everything I experienced with this person and just realized that like, I was done. Like, I needed to be done. And maybe by him not giving a shit about me, it was just his loss. And like, it took me years to like come to this conclusion that like, I was just like, it gave me years to come to this conclusion that like, I'm kind of glad that I countered him, because it taught me what to look for, like, as far as red flags is concerned. Like, because when it, like our experience together taught me, like, when I saw like the same patterns happening in other relationships, I was able to take a step back and like kind of like eventually figure out what I wanted and what I didn't want. And it took me a while to like finally find like my Prince Charming, so to speak. And like, you know, I'm happily married now, and like, we have a beautiful daughter, and like, it took a while for me to get to that point. And like, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I guess just like, I just want to end this by just basically saying, like, I dodged a huge bullet with this person. Like, you always have that one relationship where you think like, oh, we're gonna be together forever, and like there's that one significant relationship that's like a huge life lesson, and Missouri was my life lesson. And like, I dodged a huge bullet with this dude. Like, I'm kind of glad he broke up with me, because come to find out, the girl after me got that poor girl pregnant, dumped her by doing the same thing, talking to another girl online, kind of dumped her the same way. And then same poor girl that he was talking to online got her pregnant, and then she realized he's psycho. And then this poor, like, I think I got like off easy, because from what I've heard he's gotten arrested for like aggravated like assault, stalking. He broke a protective order from one of his baby's moms, just all kinds of stuff. So like I said, I got off lucky, and like I had dodged a huge bullet. And I guess to anybody who's in a oh, and I guess to anybody, sorry, I'm like I'm doing like two things at once. So to anybody that's in a relationship where you think like, you know, you're second guessing yourself and you're questioning your self-worth, you just might want to take a step back and just like think about what I said earlier. Like, just kind of clearly look at the person that you're with, and then kind of look at yourself, and just you know, think of, is this what you really want? And hopefully to anybody that's in a toxic relationship, you just know that, you know, whatever you're going through, just know your worth. And it took me like dating this person to kind of know my self-worth. And, you know, I'm still like trying to figure things out, but like I know by going through an unhealthy relationship, I now know what a healthy relationship is. So I think like when you get dumped by someone or you get broken up by someone, you should just take it as a life lesson, and just, you know, maybe just think of it as a step in the right direction. And that's what I look at it as. Like I said, I got off lucky. Some girls aren't as lucky, or some people aren't as lucky, not just girls, but you know. And on that note, I'm going to end this podcast. Hopefully I wasn't rambling too much. And hopefully you guys have a good weekend. I'm not sure what I'm doing this weekend. I want to go on a hike if it's nice. Especially since like I want to enjoy the fall before it starts like getting all snowy and crap. And it's been nice the past couple of days. So hopefully we'll go for a hike. And hopefully you guys have a good weekend. Make good choices. Be kind to each other. Wear a mask. And just take it every day, one day at a time. I know I am. I know like the past week or two have been kind of rough. But you know, I'm just trying to stay positive. I know it's kind of hard. But hopefully you guys are just hanging in there. And talk to you soon.